morning, everyone. Welcome to FPC Radio Live. It's Friday. It's June the 10th, and we're here live. We're going to talk some sports, and I'm happy to be here because I've been a little under the weather, and by just looking at the camera right now and looking at myself in the camera, it's very apparent that I have stayed in bed for essentially the last 2 days and have not got a lot of sun. So I apologize for my very ghostly appearance right now. John, you're lucky you can't see me, but I assure you that my health is getting better. I have a little bit of a stuffy nose, but I think the cough and the sore throat is gone. But we'll see how this show goes. Maybe it's going to ramp it up a little bit. But how are you doing, John?
I'm doing okay. Did you take my suggestion of tom yum soup at a local Thai restaurant if there are any near you? Because that's always my remedy.
Well, I did not. Let's see. Tuesday I did not leave my bed. I did everything I had to from the comfort of my bed. Wednesday I felt a little bit better, although just going through the process. Usually for me, when I get sick, it's one day of like real, I'm not going to move or do anything, and then it's a pretty gradual steps towards getting better. So to the point now, it's like now I'm just okay. My nose is just stuffed up, and I got to deal with that. So, but I didn't get a chance to do that. I did, however, order some very hot wings yesterday from Buffalo Wild Wings. So that helped clear the sinuses, and then obviously now they're just continuing to clear themselves out. But it's a process. I'll be honest, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was COVID. I'm not going to, pretend like it wasn't. Who knows? It might have been. I know that I was not feeling too great the last couple of days. But the good thing was I was able to stay home and rest, of course, and do my work from the comfort of my bed. But we are here now, and we're live, and I'm happy we are because we wanted to get at least one more show in this week. A lot of stuff going on. Obviously, Game 4 of the NBA Finals is tonight in Boston, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. But, John, one of my favorite things that happened yesterday, and there was very few things that I enjoyed yesterday, especially on Twitter, but the story of Britney Spears' wedding being crashed by one Mr. Jason Alexander, and no, not George Costanza, but you can understand where this went when you saw the headline. It was just obviously a very humorous headline. Again, not the same George Costanza, his her I guess former husband of about 2 days, as I've done a little bit of research on the topic, but I saw the headline and I knew obviously it wasn't that Jason Alexander, but all of a sudden you hit that thread and it was just basically a homage to George Costanza because all you saw was memes and GIFs and video clips, and it was pretty much the greatest thing I've ever seen. Or at least yesterday it was. So I don't know if you got into that at all, John, but I recommend going back and finding that TMZ tweet because there's a lot of good stuff there. Basically George Costanza centric.
Exactly. I mean, that's great to hear because now we get to see a little bit more of Jason Alexander, who's kind of gone silent. I mean, I always thought that when Seinfeld ended, he was going to have the biggest career after that because he was like a prominent actor
he had the
on
biggest.
Broadway.
Well, I was going to say he had the biggest career before that, just not in like you said, it wasn't on film. Obviously he's a Broadway. I can't speak apparently today. Broadway. Say that 16 times fast. Trained actor. Obviously, Julia Louis-Dreyfus probably, very inarguably had the biggest career post Seinfeld, given her roles. But yeah, I mean, look, he's he's so aligned with the character of George Costanza. Sometimes it's hard to separate him, the person, from George Costanza. But if you ever hear him speak and talk and everything, he's a very intelligent guy, and certainly he's the version of George Costanza that in The Abstinence when his girlfriend thought she had mono and was not sleeping with him, therefore he became more and more intelligent. That's the real Jason Alexander. But yeah, I just thought it was funny, and when you saw the headline, obviously you knew right away that okay, this is going to be a pretty comical thread. Not to mention, there was this grainy security camera footage that, in a way, kind of looked like a short, stocky, bald man was in it. So I'm just saying.
Short, stocky, bald man. Apparently she likes these type of guys. Marissa
yeah,
Tomei.
Marissa Tomei. That's right.
I think you got a thing for her.
My cousin Vinny, I love it. Anyways, no, that's why it's like now when I see the new version of any of the Spider-Man movies and I see Marissa Tomei as Aunt May, I never not think of Seinfeld. I mean, that's the thing. It doesn't matter who any of these big time actors are, whatever films they do. If they ever had any bit role in Seinfeld, that's the only thing I think of, or the first thing I think of when I think of them. Like Terry Hatcher, so many
Right.
things, but guess what? I think of Seinfeld.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I do too. And she's been in a lot of things. And yeah, I mean, Bryan Cranston became big later.
yeah.
But he was, a
Tim
recurring character, Tim Watley. Yeah. So many of them. And yeah, I mean, they do come to mind for the most part. I'm trying to think who you would think is the biggest star that ever appeared on Seinfeld. Maybe Derek Jeter. I mean, although, he's not an actor, but obviously.
I would say. I mean, sports stars are a little bit different,
Right.
And look, in the '90s, that was kind of the go-to thing. I mean, that was the thing. Have the big time sports stars of the time in it, because you think about it too. Those stars weren't as overexposed as they are now with social media. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you go back to Married with Children did this a lot, where they had always had athletes, ex-athletes, big time athletes on there. Same with Seinfeld, with obviously a very a specific few. One being the boy
Danny Tartable.
Yeah, Danny
Tartable.
If Danny Tartable was here, he'd probably say, no. But the biggest actor, I'm trying to. Oh, you got me thinking now, and I know
that's a good one. I'm trying to think who it would be. I mean,
I know Joel's
a lot
watching.
of them became big afterwards. I think a lot of them became big afterwards. Like I said, Bryan Cranston, maybe the most acclaimed of the actors, right? I mean,
yeah, I would say so for sure. Yeah, I mean, he might be that one, but that's kind of that's a good point, because like again, these weren't big stars coming into their appearance on Seinfeld. Like again, Bryan Cranston hadn't done Malcolm in the Middle yet. Obviously, hadn't done Breaking Bad. Yeah, that's a good one. Maybe we'll have to think on that. Maybe Joel will give us a good answer, because I know who he's watching. So,
Jerry Stiller. Jerry Stiller was,
yeah, but that's a recurring cast. But,
right?
Yeah, I'm thinking guest appearance only, and like biggest. I don't know. But the funny thing is too is oh god, and I'm blanking on her name right now. But
Bette Midler.
Well, okay, all right, yeah, that's probably that's a great answer. Yeah. That's a great answer.
That's
but
the one.
I was gonna say the actress who played Skylar White, Bryan Cranston's wife on Breaking Bad, was actually a guest on the show as well. One of Jerry's Flames, if you remember correctly.
Right.
Oh man, see now I'm blanking on the specifics, and you know what? I'm gonna cop out and just blame the medicine I've been taking the last couple of days as to why my memory is a little foggy on this. But yeah, I mean,
it happens.
Yeah, exactly. It happens. I've been in bed the last couple of days, and I had some unfortunate debates with people on Twitter yesterday that really just zapped the energy out of me. So, anyways, it was fun. I recommend, if you haven't seen the original TMZ tweet about Jason Alexander crashing the wedding. I recommend going back, because it's a nice tribute to George Costanza, essentially. Did you see? And John, actually, I just saw this pop up as a result of this action, but all this talk about, and like I said, we're gonna get to the Celtics Warrior series in just a minute. But all this talk about outrageous fans, and did you see the Rangers fan just absolutely assault the Lightning fan post game yesterday?
Right. Yeah. It's crazy.
Like that was, jaw dropped. I mean, is that maybe a little bit dramatic? Maybe, but like I'm sitting there watching, and the guy just literally turns around and assaults the guy. Now, I saw right before he got on the air, he has since been arrested and been charged with multiple counts of assault, and good for the authorities and everyone for getting involved with that right away, because that's completely uncalled for. And it just sort of, again, unfortunately, we see these type of things all too often in sports. Physical, fights and disagreements, sometimes within the same members of the same team's fans happen to do this. In this case, this was a very upset Rangers fan, and their reason was, well, guess what? They blew a 2-0 lead and now face elimination against the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion Lightning. So, very interesting turn of events there in terms of the actual game, but obviously post game, you don't want to see that type of incident occur in any situation, let alone to a fan that clearly wasn't prepared to defend himself because he basically just got sucker punched.
Yeah, ugly scene without question. The worst I can recall was after the San Francisco Giants won the World Series in 2010. The following year, one of their fans got beaten to a pulp at the Dodgers Stadium parking lot by Dodger fans. And I do believe the man survived, but he's in a vegetative state. That's just, I can't even comprehend that. Like, how serious are you taking this?
No, that's appalling, and that's so far crossing the line that I'm glad that there wasn't any sort of major injury or situation here, and I'm also glad that authorities and the right people acted to take care of this. And look, I hope they throw the book at him. There's no need for that, and set an example with the guy, because there's no need for that. Before we get to the Celtics Warrior series, and we will in just a minute. One thing, and trust me, I don't need any reason to bring up Tom Brady, but he did speak to the media yesterday for the first time since the Rams loss to or their loss to the Rams in the divisional round, and obviously he was asked by one of the co-hosts of the Eye Test for Two here on Full Press Coverage, Ira Kaufman, about the rumors, quote unquote, surrounding the Dolphins. And I don't know if I mentioned this to you specifically, but I know I expressed this sentiment in terms of when eventually he is asked about this situation, it's a lose-lose situation for him. And I tweeted this yesterday. If he denies it, of course he's a liar. If he says nothing like he did yesterday, which is kind of what I expected, well, of course this was true. I mean, it's no win for him. And like I said, I maintain, going back through this whole situation, that as spicy and as juicy as this narrative would be, John, and I understand why people latch onto it, because it's fun to talk about these things. You cannot convince me in any logical form or fashion that this would actually been able to come to fruition. And we went over this ad nauseum, when this first came out. Like, okay, this whole conspiracy is great, but how do you secure your release from the Bucks? How does Sean Payton secure his release from the Saints? And how do you circumvent the NFL rules to allow a player to not only own a team, but also play? There are so many obstacles that just had no earthly solution to them, that to me, it makes me feel like the story didn't really have a lot of legs. So yesterday when he's asked about it, I kind of expected the non-answer. I mean, that's who he is. And look, it's the safest play for him, because he knows better than anyone that his words are going to get twisted to the nth degree. So best thing he could do is just say nothing. And I thought that's what we got yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if this got pulled off by Brady and Sean Payton or whoever else, it would have been the ultimate drawing an inside straight flush, right? Because everything would have just had to fall into place. Like, Tampa Bay is not going to just let Brady go play for Miami. New Orleans is not going to let Sean Payton coach Miami. There'd be a lot of compensation from Miami going back to those two places. I mean, it's just, and again, you can't own a team and play for it. This isn't, George Halas coaching the team and owning the team and maybe playing for the team back in whenever, the 1930s. So, yeah, I mean, it did seem like a far-fetched story. But Brady's great at this stuff in terms of when he gets asked something, ultimate politician, he can kind of dance around it without saying much. And that's an art form. I still, as I always do, compare Brady with LeBron James. Brady still was one of the lead stories during the playoffs, even after he got eliminated. He announced his retirement before the NFC Championship game, and that's all people talked about the week leading up to the Super Bowl. Here we are in the NBA Finals, and LeBron James is talking about, buying a team potentially in Las Vegas if the NBA expands to 32 teams, and it's a big story. So both of those guys, because they're so great on and off the court or on and off the field, they still, drive news whenever they speak.
No, absolutely. And look, I mean, we see it all the time Tom Brady's still the number one jersey sales player in the
Right.
league, like more than any of these young stars. So it's not like, again, he's a national or international star, partly also because of his recognizability because of his wife and her,
Mm-hmm.
career and everything like that. But of course, I mean, his success is going to transcend uh, borders, I guess you want to call it, in terms of popularity, and certainly his personality certainly makes him more like a one of those international soccer stars than anything. So again,
Mm-hmm.
he has some appeal not just here but around the world. So look, which is fine because you know what, he is going to be the story going into next year, just like he should be the story every year because he's 45 years old and he's still playing. And like I said, in my opinion, as the best quarterback in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I didn't expect anything out of what we were going to get yesterday. Like I said, I kind of figured it was going to be a non-answer. The reason I think he flatly denied the Bruce Arians stuff is because it was more personal. Like I think a
Mm-hmm.
personal relationship between he and Bruce Arians, and I know we've dissected it over the last couple of years, but I think he takes that a little bit more seriously when it comes to, okay, like you're attacking the relationship I have with someone. I'm going to defend that, which is fine. Here, like I said before, there's no winning for him answering this question or even denying it because it would be, what it was. Mike Florio already had his story written. It was either Brady's
Mm-hmm.
lying or, like we saw yesterday, well, Brady didn't actually give a direct answer. And I'm like thinking, well, have you not paid attention to any of his press conferences over the last 22 years? I mean, again, it's like people are acting like, oh my God, I can't believe he didn't answer. And I'm like, I can, because that's what I expected. And, it is what it is. So,
He's the anti Draymond Green, right?
yeah,
I mean, Draymond
well,
Green does podcasts, does press conferences, and just really doesn't have a filter. That's why he's going to be a superstar on TV when he retires. I don't know what Brady's going to be like in the Fox booth. We'll find out in a few years, maybe 10 years when he decides to retire, that start doing those games.
yeah, I mean, look, he certainly has the knowledge, and I think he's, again, I think he's articulate enough, certainly in a football sense, that he
Mm-hmm.
can do well, but you never really know until you get them on camera and in that situation. I think his comments, again, like I said, I mean, I expected him. I expected a non-answer because even if you do answer it one way or the other, you're in a way giving legitimacy to the report. And I think that's
Right.
also something that he's very conscious of as well. Like you said, I mean, and I apologize, folks. I just had to wipe my nose with a tissue. I'm sitting here like feeling it run down my nose, and I'm like, well, sorry, camera etiquette. I'm gonna have to break it a little bit. I'm powering through this right now, so you're just gonna have to bear with me. Um, but he knows better than anyone how to, keep everything neutral, and he knows that, like, again, if you're gonna give, answer a question in a way, you give it credibility, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the issue because now, again, I mean, you have people that are gonna believe this no matter what and make up their mind. I mean, hell, again, Florio talks about it like it's a fact when again he's just hammering home this situation. Then eventually people are just going, oh yeah, well, you remember that time he tried to get himself to Miami, and be like, eye roll, sigh. Well, actually, no, that's not what happened. But we've been doing that for years with Tom Brady and the
Mm-hmm.
narrative surrounding him. So not that surprising. What's
No,
surprising,
not at
John?
all.
What's surprising, John? And this is the best way I can segue into this, the main topic of discussion that we're going to have here for the last 12 minutes of the show, and that is the NBA Finals. I tweeted yesterday, and we've talked about this before, and you've been very accurate when it comes to the description of the Warriors and Steph Curry and stuff like that. I kind of wish I could retroactively go back and root for the Cavaliers in those four finals because I've never seen a championship team like the Warriors act so soft in my life. Like I almost like I when I first saw the quote from Klay Thompson about the fans, I actually thought it was from what's that account? Ballsack Sports or whatever that is that pops up. That's just like a parody account. Like I'm thinking like, okay, this is just funny. And then I actually heard him say it, and I'm like, are you kidding me right now? You guys are flustered. I mean, this is what's happening, John. I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. They're getting shot in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's that? Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth, or whatever that saying is.
Right.
This is exactly what it is. They came into this series believing they were by far the better team, and through 3 games, even including game 2, it's clear that they're not. And I say that, yes, they had a dominant third quarter in game 2, historically dominant. The Celtics also had a historically bad third quarter in that game. And at the end of it, even with the bench players in there, it ended at a reasonable score. So I'm sitting here thinking, like, okay, the Celtics, for whatever reason, just non-existent in that third quarter. I mean, I remember sitting there staring at 64 points for what felt like an hour. You know what I'm saying? But overall, 12 quarters of basketball, who do you think's been the better team? Very clearly the better team. That's the Celtics.
Oh, without question. I said it going into the series. I think they're the younger, more athletic, physically stronger team. As long as they impose their will on the Golden State Warriors, they should be fine. I'm still trying to figure out where Golden State's going to get scoring outside of Steph Curry. So that's a technical problem. But as far as Golden State, it's interesting. Klay Thompson was all upset about how the crowd treated Draymond Green, who didn't seem to be that upset by it because Draymond Green kind of likes living in that area. But Klay Thompson 5 years ago, when the Warriors were playing the Cleveland Cavaliers in the finals, and LeBron was getting, lambasted by the fans in Oakland at the time, and one of the fans, was yelling at him, called him the B word, and LeBron kind of, didn't confront him, but acknowledged what he had said to him. Klay Thompson after the game said, "Well, some people are really sensitive, aren't they? They can't deal with the fans." And here's Klay Thompson 5 years later. All of a sudden, he's turned into Mr. Softy. No, if you physical and confront them and punch back, they're going to back down. Other than Draymond Green, they just don't have that in their DNA. They're a Silicon Valley team, and Klay Thompson and Steph Curry are like suburban basketball players with the skinny jeans.
Yeah, and look, and that's the thing. It's like, even if Draymond wanted to punch back, he doesn't have the ability to do it anymore. I mean, he's just. Mm-hmm. I mean, his again, you can see it just play out that it's just not. It's not. He just doesn't have. I mean, 15 fouls and 15 points in 3 games, and trust me, he's good for at least another 5 fouls that just weren't called on him. The technicals, mm-hmm. Everything that. It's just transpired from all of this. And again, I think the Warriors are just getting hit in the mouth, and they don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah, and what crosses the line?
No, I'm not. What did you say, Klay said?
Klay said, I guess he just got his feelings hurt.
I had to pull that out. Because, again, I'm trying, again, I'm now going back and thinking, man, I wish I was rooting for LeBron and the Cavs. And because again, it to me, the Patriots, and I'm going into the series, you could sit there and say, okay, this Warriors team is very similar to what the Patriots were in terms of, okay, they're going to championships, they're winning championships, all that stuff. I would still put the Patriots run clearly over theirs. But if the Patriots ever acted so soft in a situation like this, it would shock me. It would shock me. I feel like, again, it's surprising that they can't handle, apparently, the crowd pressure. And do you think, John, here's the thing. I cannot wait for tonight. You know why? Because what you thought was bad yesterday or the other night is going to be 10 times worse tonight, assuming the Celtics get off to a good start. Now, again, that all goes out the window if they get off to a poor start and Golden State's up, 15 in the first quarter. They're not going to be chanting. But, the moment Klay Thompson touches the ball, the moment Draymond Green mm-hmm. touches the ball, they're going to be chanting. You know what? I love the passion. I love the passion. There's no the line is crossed, obviously, when you get into things that are obviously either racist or derogatory or horribly offensive. And by offensive, I don't mm-hmm. mean saying swear words. Again, grow up. Like, you can handle a couple cuss words. There was none of that egregious stuff from Celtics fan. This was classic Boston harmonious chanting, which again we've seen for years, and it's one of the things I love about the home crowd when it gets going. I don't think I've seen a crowd in unison chant some of the best chants, like, the bullshit chant. I mean, that's classic Boston right there. I mean, you see it
Mhm.
more and more, throughout the different leagues, but if an official and a referee screws up, you're going to get that bullshit chant from Boston fans. And look, you're only going to provoke them, and you're only going to get more of that tonight when, guess what? They go back to Boston facing a very crucial game, John. Like, this Celtics team, and we both agree that they're the better team. So this isn't a underdog, surprising the big bad Warriors. This is, I think, what the country's seeing is the Celtics are just the better team. And they have not lost back-to-back games in this playoff run. So the Warriors are going to have to do something that hasn't happened yet just to win this series. If they lose tonight, which, look, I think there's a very real possibility that Celtics just come out and dominate this game. This series is over. There's not a chance in the world that the Warriors are going to come back and win 3 straight against the Celtics team. So if you're the Celtics going into this game, I think you see that. You know that that's the situation. And if you win this game in front of your home crowd with all the momentum in the world behind you, you're going to be cruising to an NBA title in just a few days. And I think the Celtics are very much up for that challenge and up for that pressure.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're the better team and all that. And the whole Golden State pushback on this is, Derek Jeter, when he would come into Fenway Park 9-10 times a year, oftentimes in the playoffs. Alex Rodriguez, what do you think those guys heard? LeBron James, when he came into TD Garden in the postseason, what do you think they heard? My favorite athlete of all time is Barry Bonds. Yes, I'm that one guy. But, I seen him play at Fenway Park, Shea Stadium, Yankee Stadium. I never heard an athlete get abused more than him. He ate it up. He used to always say, isn't this cool? 56,000 Dodger fans are all booing me in unison. How great is that? You get up and crack a double to left center.
The best of the best do that.
It doesn't even, like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, they just ate that stuff up. Like Golden State, they've had kind of this easy path, especially when you sign Kevin Durant. And I know I sound like a broken record bringing him up. Golden State without Kevin Durant is a team that won one championship against a team that was banged up. They didn't have Kyrie Irving or Kevin Love. Matthew Dellavedova was LeBron's best teammate in the 2015 finals. So congratulations, Golden State. You beat that team. Without Kevin Durant, if they lose this series, Steph Curry will be 1-3 in the finals. That only win would be against LeBron and Matthew Dellavedova. It's Kevin Durant that put them over the top, made them unbeatable. Still a very good team. I love the way they play basketball. It's fun to watch and all that stuff, but they're not a dominant team without Kevin Durant. And last time I checked, he plays for Brooklyn.
Look, and John, you've convinced me. I'm saying you admit it. And I have an audio clip of you telling me that that I convinced you and that I'm right and everything like that. And I'm gonna play that to death.
You may have convinced me a little bit this morning, Ian.
John, you may have convinced me a little bit this morning because I've never shied away from my I don't even want to call it distaste, but it's more of a sports rivalry distaste for LeBron. But in hindsight, you look back at those series, and you're right. No Kyrie Irving, Matthew Dellavedova, no Kevin Love, and you look at the Warriors blowing the 3-1 lead. And as I put up on the screen here, Joel makes a great point. Are they on the edge of losing it mentally? I think they already have. I mean, you have Draymond Green up there talking about, oh, that just means that I'm living in the Celtics' head. No, you're not. No, you're not. Like that. No, if anything, they're in the head of you, and I think that's what's happening to a majority of the Warriors players. Because again, Steph is going to get his points. Let's not pretend like he's not going to hit. Obviously, being a really good 3-point shooter, he's going to be able to accumulate points. But like you said, where are they getting the rest of the offense? And I don't know.
Well, the other night he had 31. Klay Thompson at 25. I thought he played pretty well, and they still lost by 16 points. Those two guys combined for 56. Only two in the fourth quarter. Steph has kind of shrunk in the fourth quarter. What she wants to do in these games. I mean, again, I have to push back that, people want to put him into the top 10 of all time or on the Mount Rushmore basketball players, which is lunacy because have you ever seen any guy who's a top 10 player of all time get hunted on defense like Steph Curry gets hunted on defense?
No.
No, you've never seen that. And that's one half of the court that he is a liability on. The other half of the court, he's brilliant. He's phenomenal. But, yeah, I mean, the Celtics, I think we both agree, are the better team. And, look, if Draymond Green's in their head, someone ought to explain that to Jaylen Brown, who hunted Draymond Green at the beginning of Game 3, put up 17 points in the first quarter, and I think right now is the front runner to be MVP of the series. I don't want to be too premature here. They're only up 2-1, but Jaylen Brown, who is my favorite Celtic, and I think he's really focused, serious, and he was calling it out like, give me the ball, Draymond Green is not going to stop me, and he didn't.
No, and they went right at him. They could again. There was nothing that the Warriors could do, and they really from start to finish dominated that game. Now I know the Warriors made a little bit of a run in the third quarter, but even before the start of the fourth quarter, and I kind of wish I had texted this to you because it would have made me seem even smarter. But I said, at the end of the day, I know the lead has shrunk to 4, but that's by virtue of this ridiculous 7-point possession that happened, and outside of that, the Celtics responded yet again. And this goes back to that second round, the game against Milwaukee that they blew. And I remember we sat here and you're like, how can they lose that game? How do you come back from that? And then they did. And at that point, John, there's not a single doubt in my mind that this team could not rebound after anything. Obviously on the court, but you know what I mean? Like rebound in terms of performance overall. And that's why, to me, I'm sitting here thinking like, well, what are you going to throw at them, Golden State? You have Steph Curry averaging 30-plus points a game. Klay Thompson almost got you 30. We know Draymond is not capable of putting up any sort of excessive points and is really a liability. I mean, all he does, his physicality and his, getting in the minds, it's just not working. Like he's trying to get in the head of Grant Williams. It's not working. You know what I mean? It's not. He's not flustered. Jaylen Brown's not flustered. Jason Tatum might be the quietest superstar I've ever seen. So to the point where people are criticizing his play, but then you look and you see, well, his assists created 33 points or 27 points the other night on top of what he actually physically scored himself. So yeah, I agree with you. Jaylen Brown, it should right now be very much the front runner for the MVP, but Jason Tatum's been a superstar. And I think everything the Warriors, especially Draymond Green, have tried to do to get into their heads, it just hasn't worked. Because at the end of the day, it all comes back to the Celtics are just better. They're deeper, they're more skilled, and they have an advantage pretty much at every position. I mean, how great was Robert Williams the other night?
Oh, man.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And
he's a freak.
Yeah,
he really is. I mean, he's some of the blocks he makes are just like, why would you go inside against him? Because it's just going back in your face or going to send it into the crowd to prove a point. No, he's a sensational player. And even on the offensive end, I think he's very underrated. He's a good passer. He's great up at the rim. Obviously, an outstanding rebounder. And I'll be honest with you, Ian, of all the players on that team, the guy I'm most confident at the free throw line is Robert Williams.
Yeah.
He never misses from the free throw line. These great shooters like Jaylen Brown struggles and Horford missed both of his free throw shots the other night.
Marcus Smart.
Robert Williams is pretty good. Marcus Smart's missing. Tatum has had some on-again, off-again struggles at the free throw line. No, the Celtics are the younger team, more physical, more athletic. I think you saw that when, if you remember, there was a play, I believe, in the second half where Klay Thompson was driving to the basket and Jaylen Brown just swatted it away. And it's almost like at that point, it's like, well, Dad no longer can beat the son. The son has surpassed Dad in those one-on-one games in the driveway. They're just more athletic. They're better. Look, this happens. I remember in 1991, I was a huge Magic Johnson fan. The Lakers were playing the Bulls, and by the middle of that series, I said, Magic's great. He's an all-time great. Jordan's better. Scottie Pippen is better than James Worthy at this point. The younger, more athletic guys are now ready to take over, and that's exactly what's happened in this series.
Look, and I'll give credit to the old guy too. I think Al Horford's been phenomenal. I know he had
He has.
obviously that game 2, very quiet, struggled, but he's been phenomenal. I think he's been a great defensive player. Obviously,
Mhm.
he's hit very timely shots, and I my favorite play from that game was, and this was kind of the epitome of where I think these two teams are right now, both physically and mentally, was the quick shot down the court to Jaylen Brown when the
Oh,
Warriors were caught napping. And to me, that was just like, this is just them toying with them at that point. This shows me that the Celtics right now are just on a different level than the Warriors. And short of, again, another epic collapse or epic failure in a third quarter by the Celtics, I just don't see how the Warriors create an advantage enough to win 3 games
mhm.
out of the next 4.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be difficult for them. Yeah, Horford is playing the way Draymond Green used to play.
Mhm.
I think Mark Jackson said that on the broadcast. Similar type guy. He doesn't have to score to be effective, but he's going to rebound, set screens,
But he
play
does
excellent defense.
score too, which is
But he does
great.
score,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's 26 in game 1. Draymond, like you said, 15 points, 15 fouls. That's not a good box score over 3 games. Last time I checked, that's not very good.
No, not at all. And look, I think Horford, obviously, this is his shot. He knows it. He's worked his entire career to get this point. Has come very close. But this is it. This for him, I would not be surprised if this is the last season for Al Horford, especially if they win this title. So,
But he's got 30 million guaranteed next year, so he'll be back.
oh, you're right. I apologize. He'll be back, but you know what I mean.
He'll
Like
be back for that one. But no, I know what you mean. This is like, I'll be honest with you, Ian. This could elevate him into the Hall of Fame discussion, right? Because look, everybody makes the Hall of Fame in basketball, so I'm not going to push back on that. But 5-time All-Star, class guy, leader, all that stuff. If you throw a championship on top of that, he may be able to get in.
And not to mention having very key moments in that championship run, not just like he wasn't what was a PJ
PJ Brown.
PJ Brown, thank you.
Yeah, PJ Brown.
I almost said PJ Stock because my mind went elsewhere, but no, but yeah, PJ Brown in 2008, who again, nice role player, obviously at the end of his career, but certainly not the impact player that Al Horford is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I mean, there's no guarantee that the Celtics are going to be back next year. There's certainly, you can see the potential, obviously, for this team to have more than just, this isn't the Toronto team where it's like, okay, you got Kawhi Leonard and you go on this nice run and it's probably over after that. You're not going to have this sustained success. The Celtics should very much be setting themselves up for a nice run here, with the 2 J's and everything that they have in place. You talk about Grant Williams, how quickly he's turned into a great player. Like, for what he does, he's a great player. I mean, he's
nice role player. Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. Like, when I say great, I mean relative to what his role is. Like, when I say he's a great player, I don't mean he's LeBron James, but he knows how to be physical. He's a hell of a 3-point shooter, which is again a far cry from how he started. And he does the things that Draymond Green wishes he could do, which is he gets in the head of the other team. Like, if I was an opponent, if I was a fan of an opposing team, I would hate Grant Williams. It would drive me crazy. I would be like, his face is stupid. Like, what is he doing? Like, why is it? But that's the thing. Those are the elements that you have in these great teams. And this is why the Celtics have been so dominant. And like I said, I mean, people are, excuse me, will point out that, obviously they went to back-to-back game 7s, but this is something I brought up before the final series to you. Like, no one is talking about the fact that they had 1 day of rest between series number 2 and series number 3. The defending, you go through a 7-game series against the defending champion Bucks, and then immediately go into a 7-game series against the number 1 seeded Heat. And, people were acting like, well, the Celtics got lucky, blah, 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 blah. Well, like, no, that's a very grueling stretch over the course of an entire month, John. I mean, you're talking about 14 games in 28 days of grueling basketball. They had the few days off before the start of the finals, and with this being spread out more, I think it's just benefited them greatly, because I think you see more consistent play across the board, save for that third quarter in game 2.
Yep, get some extra rest for Rob Williams. Al Horford is,
Mhm.
the oldest guy in the series. So, yeah, things are all looking good. But the thing with the Celtics, they always bounce back after head-scratching losses. They also have this nasty habit, and hopefully they don't fall into this tonight, of after a really good win, like taking their foot off the gas a little bit. They've done that throughout the postseason. I think they sense this right now, like, let's take care of business here, get a 3-1 lead, and that gives them 3 chances to wrap this thing up.
And look, we'll end it with this. Are they winning tonight? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, I agree. So, thank you everyone for tuning in. We stayed a little bit late today. We went to overtime, 10 minutes over, but that's fine because we had plenty to talk about today. We will be back on Monday, and maybe, quite possibly, might be talking about a Celtics championship by the time we get back on Monday. So, actually, no. What game 5 would be? Monday. Okay, a potential closeout game. I apologize.
Yes.
But we will be back on Monday to talk about that and anything else that comes down, both in the NBA and in the NFL. Potentially, we'll talk about Aaron Rodgers' new flame. Very interesting character. But we don't have enough time to get to that today. We're going to save that for Monday. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Give us a follow on Twitter, at Full Press Radio, at FPC Radio Live. And, of course, I am at IGLEN31 and John at JohnZap25. Have a great weekend, folks. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you on Monday.